Hello, welcome to Shad Life. Well, this is an update video because I haven't done one in a while. These can get kind of long because I have different segments throughout this video, so I'll do the timeline thing down in the description so you can just read through and click on the sections you may be interested in, or you can watch the whole thing. That's up to you. All right, so let's get to the first topic at hand, and that is fall and my sobriety. Yeah, they go kind of hand in hand. The reason why I bring this up is because this time of year has always been my biggest struggle. For me personally, my favorite time of year is spring and summer. And probably early fall, but as we start to get closer to winter, I struggle a bit more. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's not so much the cold and the snow, that has a little bit to do with it. It has a lot more to do with the lack of daylight. So it gets darker earlier, and then there's the, we turn off daylight savings, I believe it is, and that makes it darker much earlier in the day. All of a sudden it's like, oh, we got plenty of light until 6, and all of a sudden, boom, it starts getting dark at like 5, right? Like, I really struggle with that. I wish they would just keep the days longer in the evening and just stay with that throughout the year. I don't know why we do this switch back and forth anymore, but either way, it's always that time of year that has been hardest for me to really focus on my sobriety. The difference is I'm 8 years in, right? So for the first probably 3 years, I really struggled. I wanted to just go drink and just have my happy juice, right? Because that's what I thought it was, when it's actually quite the opposite, believe it or not. But now I know that I'm not going to go back out and drink again. I just am not. I'm too far in. I have absolutely zero interest in it and so on. So the concern isn't, oh, I'm going to go back and start drinking again during this. Let's be honest, it's kind of a more depressing time of year for me anyway. It's very interesting because everybody's a little different. There's a lot of people I know that just are all upbeat. They love, the holidays coming up. Halloween's pretty cool and they're into that, but then they're into Thanksgiving, they're into these religious holidays and so on and so forth, and I'm just not into that stuff, right? And then what's even going to be even more challenging is as we go into these holidays this year, my mom passed away on December 24th of last year, and so this is gonna be the first year where my mom and my dad passed away 4 or 5 years ago now, I think. So yeah, it's very different. It's a very different fall for me, so I have to deal with that. I got to figure things out. It's really hard for me to have motivation, even here from doing videos on my YouTube channel. I'm my brain's all over the place. I'm like, what kind of video do I want to do? Whatever, and I just having a hard time coming up with ideas, things like that. I will get through it. I always do. I just like to talk about this stuff because I know there's other people that go through these same struggles, and I feel like when I talk about them, it helps other people because they realize they're not alone in this. So yeah, that is one thing going into fall. I do want to talk about another thing related to fall, and this is more of a safety thing for those of you that live in areas where the leaves fall. So let's talk about that. This is more of a riding tip, and I'm thinking about it right now because I just posted on Mountain Bikers of Minnesota, which is a Facebook group I manage. about it, and so I might as well talk about it on my YouTube channel. When the leaves fall on the trail, you got to be a lot more cautious when riding, especially less experienced riders. You know, some of us like to slide around and can have fun in the leaves, but for most of us, you just have to be careful. So like if a corner has leaves in it, you know, slow down ahead of time and then take the corner and be off the brakes when you're in the corner. Things like that. Just be more cautious, because leaves are really slippery in the turns. They will slide out. It's not like dirt, right? And you can consider leaves like, I mean, maybe not as slippery as ice, but they can be pretty slippery. And one of the things I tend to do when the leaves are covering the trail is I tend to ride my fat bike. I did just recently get it ready, but my fat bike, because the tires are so big, does give me a little bit better traction in the corners and such. So, you know, just an idea. Other things the leaves will do is they will cover the features. Like there'll be rocks and certain things under the leaves that you may not see. Like normally in the summertime you're flying through and you'll see rocks and certain features in the trail. Well, when they're covered with leaves, it's very difficult to see those features, so things can catch you off guard and you might get, you know, jerked by hitting a rock under the leaves in your handlebars or something. I one time was riding and I got surprised by something under the leaves and it made my hand fall off the handlebar because I was kind of too relaxed. So just things like that. I didn't crash, by the way, but it was a scare. But you know, just be cautious when the trail's leaf colored. Oh, the other thing about when it's leaf covered is it can be wet under the leaf, so definitely check trail conditions from whatever organization posts them. But you know, you don't want to ride, like there could be mud under the leaves and you don't really know it's muddy, or it could be wet and soft and things like that. And then wet leaves are, again, slippery, even more slippery than usual. So, you know, just be aware of that as we go into fall and more leaves fall on the trail. And definitely go out and volunteer if your trail crews in your area like to clear leaves. I know there's some trails in my area that do, and they go out and, you know, a lot of times they use rakes, sometimes they use leaf blowers, things like that. I actually prefer, I have an electric leaf blower and I prefer it mostly because it's quieter. You don't have this running motor the whole time, but it's also pollutes less and things like that. But, you know, definitely get out and volunteer if your trail does that. Yeah, let's go on to the next topic. I started reorganizing my workshop area and basically the basement in general, and it's kind of half done, so it's pretty messy. I got stuff laying around here. You know, this area pretty much is always the way it is because it's where I do most of my work, bikes and stuff. But over here I have my Zwift set up, but I changed it, and it's kind of dark over there, so I didn't set the lighting up for this video. But basically I have my Cosmic Stallion in the bike stand. I have my monitor now on a portable stand and the computer. That's kind of neat, so everything can be moved around. And I moved it from over there, and there's a reason I did that, because over there, all that stuff that I have over there that I'm just kind of putting over there so I can go through it is going to get cleared out. I don't know, I'm going to have to get rid of a lot of stuff, but it's going to get moved. And then that's going to become kind of the workout area. Like I'm going to have a yoga mat there. I have a weighted ball. I have some weights and things like that. And that'll be like for working out. And so that's my winter plan, you know, throughout the winter. Yes, I do get out and fat bike here and there, but I also get on Zwift and do more indoor workouts and things like that. Absolutely mandatory for me to keep my fitness level at least where it is. I would like to increase it, but it's very hard. I do find, you know, I am 57, and as I get older, it's a lot more work to stay fit and remain fit. Yes, it can be done, but it's way more work than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago for me. I remember, you know, being able to be like, oh, I just want to get fit and build some muscle or whatever, or train a little bit, and boom, it would be literally just within a few weeks I was like already just on it. Now it is not like that at all. So I have to really, coming back to this motivation thing I was talking about earlier, I really have to be motivated, because and some people have, I don't think it's appropriate that people make comments on my channel, and I just always delete them. But I have had people make comments about my weight or my fitness or my breathing or whatever, right? Just don't bother. You know, I know my fitness, I know what's going on with me, so I don't need your, you know, it comes off as elitist, it comes off as negative or whatever. You know, it's just not something you should be doing to anybody out there on the internet. No, you're not helping, you're criticizing is what you're doing. So yeah, my plan is to try to lose like 20 pounds. That's my ideal loss. I am not, you know, I have been checked medically and all of that, and I'm actually in pretty good shape. It's interesting because Seth at Burn Peak just did a video about this where, you know, as he's getting older, and he's quite a bit younger than me, but, you know, it is challenging. And even him, even though you look at him and you think, oh yeah, he's fit, he had a few things going on. So it's important to go get the lab tests and get regular checkups and things like that. So that's what really matters, not like if you see like a gut on somebody or whatever. Like, I know people that have a gut and they are just, they'll crush you on a mountain bike trail, and they're plenty fit. It's not all about just visual external appearance you see on people. It's a lot more to do with what's going on inside. And I ride enough, I do enough physical activity to where I am actually pretty healthy. And I compare myself to the average person out there. If I'm comparing myself to, you know, elitist cyclists, yeah, I'm not as fit as a lot of those people. Like, you know, I don't compete, I don't race anymore, things like that. When I was doing that, I actually was really fit. So the kind of a segue into that from talking about what I'm doing down here in my basement, just because it's something I do want to talk about. And again, don't make comments on people's channel about how they look or their weight or whether they sound like they're, it's rude. Don't do it. So yeah, I'll have this basement rearranged here eventually. I started it probably a little over a month ago, but then I kind of put it on pause because the weather's been good. I went down to Bentonville, I did all these things, and I've been doing a bunch of riding and stuff like that. But now that we're getting more into the slowdown of the season, I really want to get this basement dialed for winter. Okay, so I'm back in this situation, happens all the time, where I now have 6 mountain bikes and something's got to give, right? So, and I'm counting my fat bike as one of them, but the fat bike needs to be in my stable, so that's sticking around, right? And then I have one full suspension bike, my Canyon Spectral 125, and then I have these 3 hardtails over here, Haro Saguaro, Esker Hey Duke Titanium, and my newer Esker Smoky. This is a steel version, 4130 chromoly. And then I have my Surly low side. Well, where I'm at right now is I'm like, okay, what bikes am I just not riding? When I have this many bikes, some of them just don't get ridden. And if that's the case, I probably need to get rid of them. I just shouldn't keep them around. It's kind of like, why should I keep them around when somebody else could be enjoying them? And I know some people are going to be disappointed with this one, but one of those bikes that I rode maybe once this year, I think, is my Surly low side. My Surly low side, I love that bike, but I just don't ride it. So I'm going to sell it, believe it or not. Another thing is it's a single speed, and I don't see myself continuing with riding single speed. As much as I love it, it's not good on my joints and my body at this age as I get older and things like that. So I'm gonna get rid of my low side. Currently it's in this configuration where it's got 100 millimeter Marzocchi Z2 fork on it and regular, you know, riser style handlebars. I believe they're Chrome Mag, like 35 mil rise bars on it. Rides great the way it is. I love it. But I also still have over here in my pile of stuff that I'm trying to organize, I still have the rigid fork and the Sunrise bars and stem over there. So all of that will go with the bike, the original bars and fork and stem, as well as its current configuration with the Marzocchi Z2 bomber fork on it. So if you are interested in that bike or the next bike that I'm going to bring up, which is behind me, I'll let you guess which one you think it'll be. But just message me at Shadlife YT. Again, that's Shadlife YT, so that's YT stands for YouTube. shadlifeyt@gmail.com and message me. I haven't come up with a price for the lowest side yet, but if you are interested, you know, just make an offer or something and I may just go for it. I tend to sell bikes, my used bikes, at a very reasonable price. So if you're interested in that, if you're local, great. If you're not local, then I have to box it up and ship it and all that, so it's going to cost more for me to do that. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about the next bike. Yep, out of these bikes, the one that I ride the least is the Thai Esker Hayduke. I did ride that a couple of times this year, but now that I have the Saguaro and the Smoky, I'm just gonna sell the Thai Hayduke. I do have a price for that. The frame alone is $2,500 if you were to get it new, and you know, titanium is it's a forever material. Like it doesn't really age, and it's excellent. So you know I can't sell this like for a ridiculous amount of money, but I'm thinking around $3,000 for the whole bike. It's got carbon wheels, DT Swiss 350 hubs, XT components throughout, or XT drivetrain anyway. P&W loam dropper. It's got a sweet DVO diamond, no, not a diamond, that's a Sapphire D1, I believe it is. Fork, sweet fork, I love the fork. Very dialed bike. I love that bike, but I don't ride it. I just don't ride it. So speaking of that, I am gonna talk about something I learned the other day, and it's another reason why I want to sell the Thai Hayduke. So let's talk about that. So last Friday I got done with work. Work's been challenging lately because we have a release coming out next week. I'm a software engineer, and whenever there's releases, things get pretty intense because you got to make sure everything's really good. We test a lot and whatever. So my brain was super fried by the time I got done with work Friday. All I wanted to do was take a nap. but I forced myself. This is the thing I was talking about at the beginning of the video. I forced myself to just go ride, and I'm glad I did. And I rode Lone Lake Park. I grabbed my Canyon Spectral. I'm like, no cameras, no anything. I just want to go ride. I want to get some fitness in, things like that. So most of the bikes I've been riding at Lone Lake Park have been the Smoky or the Haro, and I did ride my Thai Hayduke there when I did the platform versus clipless, I hate calling them clipless pedals, video. If you haven't seen that video, it's back a few, go check it out. But I timed my laps when on platforms and clipped in. What's so interesting is Friday, after being super tired, completely unmotivated, I went to Lone Lake with my Canyon and I crushed my laps with any other bike that I've ridden, the hardtails. And in my eyes, I'm like, oh, the Taihei Duke, 26 pounds. Like, I would think that bike would be the fastest one on the trail because it's the lightest, you know, it's a hardtail, so my power goes right to the rear wheel, all that stuff, right? And Lone Lake, it's like each loop is just under 5 miles, but it's also got about almost 500 feet of climbing per loop. So it's a climby trail, but it's also got some fast, fun descents, and it's a really fun trail. It's like you do some climbing and you're rewarded with some fast, fun, flowy downhill stuff. Super cool trail, and it's not far from my house. So while I was there on the Canyon, I smoked my times by over a minute, and I was just like, I had an average speed of 9.5 miles per hour. For me, again, talk about these elite riders, right? For me, that's a good average speed. I'm usually 8.5, maybe if I'm pushing 9 mile per hour average on single track, I'm pushing pretty hard. But 9.5 for me is a fast pace there. I know, you know, XC racers and things like that, they do 11, 12 mile per hour average speeds, which always blows my mind. Like, you got to be putting in everything you got all the time to get those kind of average speeds on pretty hilly, tight single track. But yeah, I was impressed. So that got me to thinking, like, that's a trail bike, that's not an XC bike. It is pretty light, it's right around 30 pounds, and I have it set up, you know, the way I like it set up. I have taller bars. I have 50 millimeter, I believe, bars. I always forget what the deity increments are, but they're around 50 millimeter rise bars. And you know, again, 140 millimeters up front, 125 rear. But where I think that bike had the advantage was on the downhills. Because it's full suspension, you know, some of the trail gets pretty rough, and the corners can be kind of harsh or whatever, and on that bike I could just rail the downhills, and then I had more momentum going into the climbs, so at least at the beginning of the climbs I could pedal into them and keep a little more momentum. And then you know, I think that's mostly what gave me the better lap times, was just being able to keep my average kind of momentum, higher speed up. I don't think I climb any better on that bike, but it's the downhills and the initial uphill climbs that, you know, because there's so many, it just really shaved off a lot of time. So I was quite surprised with that. So that's kind of got my brain churning a little bit on bikes a little bit, and where I'm at, especially with hardtails. And, you know, again, I bring up age a lot, but there's a true fact. As I get older, you know, the low side is harder for me to ride as a single speed, and hardtails are, you know, harder to ride. Like, they're harder on my lower back, they're whatever. I love them, I love how they ride, but there's a point in my life where I'm like, I don't know, you know. One thing I do know is that I'll be keeping the Haro around, and the reason why I love the Haro Saguaro is because it's kind of like a mountain bike that rides like a DJ bike. And I did put little higher rise bars on it. I didn't tend to do that on all my bikes, as you can see. All my bikes get higher bars because I just like that. Even my fat bike, believe it or not, I put taller rise bars on it. So I like the Saguaro because it just shreds. But if I was to go on a long ride with that bike, ouch. It is, that aluminum frame is really stiff, it's abusive, so it's definitely not going to be a long haul bike. That's what the Canyon will be for. So really liking the Canyon, and so I want to talk about the Canyon for a minute. So if you follow my channel, you know that I'm constantly swapping out bikes and getting new bikes and whatever. So like this one's been around a while, it is time for me to sell it, but like this is new this summer, this is new this summer. Just before these two I've had other hardtails. So yeah, I switch out bikes a lot, and my last full suspension bike was the Salsa Rustler, but I kept the Salsa Rustler for about 2.5 years, which for me is a long time to have a bike. So this bike is gonna stick around. I like it that much. So over the winter, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna order an upgraded suspension bearing kit for it. There's some, I forget the name of the company, but they make nicer bearings. So I'm gonna update all the suspension pivot bearings. I even bought the Park Tool bearing set to press bearings and pull bearings and things like that, or remove and install bearings, whatever you call it. It's actually sitting up here, that black box. I haven't used it yet, but I do plan to use it this winter, and I will do a video on that, on how to replace the bearings and things like that. But I'm gonna spend the winter, you know, just doing fine little tweaks. I like the bike the way it's set up right now, but I'm gonna do, you know, a few more tweaks, of course, go through and get it all cleaned up and everything and ready for spring. But yeah, that bike is gonna stick around, Spectral 125. While I'm at it, I want to try to see if I can figure out that little plate where the brake cables go through. It's this thing here that tends to creak every once in a while, and so I end up squeezing lube in there, and so I'll figure that issue out too, because I hate when my bike makes noise when I'm riding it. So yeah, that's my plan. The 125, when I was looking to buy a new full suspension bike and to replace my Rustler, because I really liked my Rustler, that was a fun bike, but I wanted to try something new. The Canyon fit the bill. I read a bunch of reviews on it, I watched some YouTube reviews on it, and it kind of fits my style of riding. The lower travel rear, the 125, versus like I think the regular Spectral is either 140 or 150, I don't remember, but it just makes the bike much more responsive, and I just feel like, you know, unless you're doing really big hits and stuff, you just don't need all that suspension travel, that crazy suspension travel. So when you have a shorter amount of travel, when I go to jump and preload the bike, it really is responsive and preloads quickly, and I can pop and stuff off of it. As you get to more suspension, the suspension tends to absorb a lot more, so you got to preload a lot more, which can be done, but it generally, the rule of thumb that I kind of go by is it's all about the speeds you're going to be going. So most of the time I'm here in Minnesota, even down in Bentonville, you don't get up to these ridiculous speeds, or places like that, where, you know, you're not bombing down a mountain, you're not doing 25-30 mile per hour descents, right? So because of that, you don't need as much suspension travel, and when you're jumping and things like that, if you're going those high speeds, then yeah, when you have 160, 170 millimeters of travel, you want that more travel for, like, when you push into it, it's gonna compress on you because you got much bigger G-forces at higher speed, things like that. So it makes sense. So your travel shouldn't necessarily always be about how big of hits and big of things you're gonna do. It should be more about what speeds are you gonna be doing, you know. I'm mostly somewhere between 6 miles per hour, and my last ride, which I was just talking about, I think my highest speed was like 22 miles per hour on the downhill things and stuff like that. So, you know, don't need big travel for those speeds, right? So keep that in mind if you're ever thinking about it. So that was kind of where I was going with this bike, and it ended up being exactly what I like and what I wanted. And I put the taller bars on it to give it more of a poppy feel, things like that. So yep, it's gonna stick around because I really like it. So I'm gonna just be tinkering with it over winter. That was kind of a long-winded update about the Canyon, but you know, this is an update video. I warned you at the beginning. Okay, before I conclude this video, I'm going to be going to, I just realized I have my Rays shirt on. I did not plan this, but I am going to be going to Rays over Thanksgiving weekend. I'll be going with some friends of mine. One of the things I always struggle with is, do I bring my BMX bike or do I bring my DJ bike? I don't know yet, but I brought my BMX bike there some years and I really like it, and I brought my DJ bike there last year and I really liked it, so we'll see. But yeah, I'll be going to Rays. Got a couple other things planned throughout the winter, but yeah, there you have it. That is my update. Long one, but you know, lots to talk about. And yes, there's still some riding left before the snow gets here, if we get snow this year, because we've had some years where we haven't. We got Global Fat Bike Day, things like that coming up, so more videos to come. I appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.